Yes, I love the idea of Miami in the Big 12. No, I don't think it's happening tomorrow, next week, or next month. I'm Pete Mundo. Heartland College Sports is where you find us covering the Big 12 Conference. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being a part of the show. Hit that thumbs up if you're new to us on YouTube, and as always, subscribe. That way you never miss an episode of this show, especially if you're a Big 12 fan. So Miami and the Big 12 is kind of back in the conversation a little bit because of what has been a very bumpy week for the ACC. So if you missed it this week, the ACC, you got the two big dogs there, Clemson and Florida State, trying to effectively get their way out of the Atlantic Coast Conference. What's gone on this week? Well, this past week, you had Clemson join Florida State and become the second school to sue the ACC as they seek to get out of this conference, or at least figure out how to get out of this league as cheaply as possible. So this happened earlier in the week, and now these two schools have filed this complaint in South Carolina, saying the ACC's exorbitant $140 million exit penalty and the grant of rights that we've heard so much about, used to bind these schools to a conference through their media rights, should be struck down. The school is saying in a lawsuit, each of these erroneous assertions separately hinders Clemson and Florida State's ability to meaningfully explore its options regarding conference membership, to negotiate alternative revenue-sharing proposals among ACC members, and to obtain full value for its future media rights. What does that mean in layman's terms? Basically, we think we're getting the short end of the stick here. We don't believe we're making as much money as we should, and we want out. Now, for most of us, you sign a contract, that's it. You're locked into that contract, and the ACC grant of rights goes through 2036. But as we've seen before, these agreements within these conferences are not worth the paper they're written on. And that's where you look at this and you look at the last 10 years, 15 years of college sports. And do you realistically think that Florida State and Clemson will not ultimately get what they want, which is how to get out of the ACC as quickly and effectively as possible? They're going to get out. It's only a matter of when and how quickly and how soon. So I think they're out. I think they're done. So then enter Miami, enter the Big 12. Here's what happened this past week that makes this fairly compelling. The Miami athletic director went on WQAM radio in Miami, and he said that we are incredibly solid with the ACC. It's a great conference. It provides great structure and certainly access to the college football playoff. He said, we look at our circumstance here with a very orange and green set of glasses, and we ask and we say that we're all in. It's a good spot in a growing football program. We've invested in it. We brought in Mario Cristobal, and he's establishing an incredible foundation. What's the opportunity for us here with things under our control to move this thing forward? The ACC is still one of the Power Four conferences that is part of the college football playoff. So that's the AD saying, we're good with the ACC. Now, do I believe him? For now, sure. But if Clemson and Florida State bail, that conference is a shell of what it was. But they do, as he notes, technically still have an automatic bid. So here's where the Big 12 comes into the picture. The Big 12 comes into the picture courtesy of an interesting comment made by Inside the U's David Lake. Inside the U is a Miami-based 247 sports site. And he said in the last couple of days, Miami's leadership needs a kick in the pants. He said, frankly, unless they change their approach, I could foresee the Big 12 being a landing spot. He said, hopefully leadership in Miami starts being proactive and make sure they have a seat at the table in the game of musical chairs for the migration to the Big 2 sooner rather than later. So it was kind of like poo-pooing the Big 12, saying I could see the Big 12 being a landing spot, like, oh, they're not going to get the ACC or the SEC invite. They're not going to get the Big 10 invite. Miami, I know Miami fans may not think this, Miami is a perfect fit for Brett Yormark and what he is building with the Big 12. Brett Yormark is about outside the box as Big 12 commissioner. Brett Yormark is about flash. Brett Yormark is working with brands and individuals to transcend college athletics. What is better than the U to be a part of that? There's not much. And that's why it makes all the sense in the world for, if this day does come, Miami to look at the Big 12 and not say, oh, little brother, we're not getting into the other two, and actually look at it and say, this is an opportunity for us. This guy is innovative, meaning Brett Yormark. This guy is outside the box. This guy is creative. And Miami has not just a good football brand that has been struggling as of late, of course, but a great and an improving basketball brand, right? I mean, you got to give them credit for that. They're not just a football school. In fact, they've had more success in the last few years in basketball than football. But they obviously view themselves as a football school. But you get Miami with Brett Yormark, Deion Sanders, what's going on in the Big 12, the brands that he is obviously actively working to build. And Miami fans should not view this as, oh, we're going to be playing these land-grant Iowa State and Kansas State schools. Look at it as you're part of something creative, innovative, and by the way, your path to a college football playoff will be easier than in those other two leagues, where Miami, which has not gotten football right in a long time, will end up being a doormat. And the only thing we'll think about with Miami football are the highlights from 20, 30, 35 years ago. That's it. Their best bet is to join the Big 12 and to buy in to what the Big 12 is doing if the ACC does ultimately collapse. And I do think it's only a matter of time. If Clemson and Florida State win this lawsuit, if they get their way, and I believe that they will, this thing is going to go up in flames real fast. And that's exactly, if you want to play, looking ahead here, that's exactly how Miami should be looking at this. Now, I'm not convinced that Clemson and Florida State wouldn't also possibly work in the Big 12, but we obviously know where they want to go and what they want to do. They want to get themselves in to the supposed Power 2, the Big 10 and the SEC, or the SEC. But it's not going to be as easy as they think it's going to be. The Big 10 makes more sense because they don't have a foothold in that Southeast area. You look at the SEC. Do they want to compete? Does Florida want to compete with Florida State suddenly in the SEC? That feels like a long shot. Does South Carolina want to sign on to Clemson? Probably not right now. But the Big 12 would be all in. And if you're a Miami fan, if you're a Florida State fan, if you're a Clemson fan, those programs obviously have had tremendous success over their histories. Florida State's on the upswing. We know that. Clemson's kind of in no man's land right now with Dabo Swinney. And Miami, you like where they're at with Mario Cristobal, but it's not like they're having tremendous success. Don't poo-poo the Big 12. Don't. You'd be making a major mistake to do that. And by the way, if you were to buy stock right now in one of these three programs, Clemson, UCF, and Miami, it's not a done deal that you wouldn't look at UCF as a very legitimate option of those three. Who am I buying for the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, yes, Dabo's won national championships. I get it. But a lot of people are suggesting maybe the game has passed him by. Maybe this new world of NIL is not conducive to Dabo Swinney's style of football and style of coaching and running a program. It's entirely possible. And, I look at Mario Cristobal and I said to myself, okay, I like what he's done in terms of his history and what he did before he got to Miami, obviously. But, he's 2 years in and he's a combined, 12-13 in 2 years? He's 6-10 in conference play. So I'm not sitting here overly impressed thus far. Meantime, UCF is a couple of, plays away from winning 9 games last year when you go back and look at what they could have done and should have done against Baylor and Oklahoma and some others. So UCF is very much on the upswing. The recruiting has been tremendous, and the foundation is very much there under Gus Malzahn. So downplaying the Big 12 because of what you perceive them to be would be a mistake for any of these fan bases. And that's how everybody should be looking at the next several months, which is really what we're looking at here for the timeline, maybe longer. But Clemson and Florida State are certainly putting down their foot. They're laying the case out right now for why they think it is time to get out of the ACC and at the very least explore their options, because the Big 12 teams are going to be making a lot more money than the ACC teams. The Big 12's got a much better contract. It's a shorter term deal. It's done in 2031 and it pays more money. The ACC deal goes till 2036 and will ultimately end up paying less money per school. So the Big 12 has the leverage as the third power conference right now. That is indisputable. I'm Pete Mundo. We're Heartland College Sports. Thanks for being here. Hit that thumbs up button on the video. Thanks for joining us. We've got a lot more content around the Big 12 and around the story that's going to be coming your way. So subscribe to the channel. That way you never miss an episode. And we'll be talking to you very soon. And join our free Heartland College Sports message boards as well on the website, heartlandcollegesports.com. I'm Pete Mundo. Go Big 12. We'll talk to you soon. See you later.